Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Pamela Lezondi with your technology and social media news. We hope you still are wearing that mask if you are in crowded spaces, or otherwise keep that social distancing. Today I am in Mpumalanga in Hammersdale in KwaZulu-Natal. I'll tell you about what I'm doing here a bit later on in the program. Remember that it's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you about Twitter returning with its verification process. We're asking you what you think of that blue tick. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up tonight. We look at the digital migration of television. The international deadline was 5 years ago. South Africa missed it. They now have a new South Africa deadline. Will we meet that deadline? We review the new LG Wink smartphone. And in our discussion, we tell you about a project that's taking place in Mpumalanga in Hammersdale, where we are coming to you from this week. That project is powering up the community while giving free Wi-Fi access as well. Namibia, Kenya, Algeria, and a few other African countries switched off analog TV and migrated to digital. The process, or the international deadline, was 5 years ago. South Africa missed this international deadline. The first countries to start the process include Britain, and that happened 19 years ago. South Africa has a new deadline of December 2021. But are we going to meet the new deadline?
So it's been a decade since it was decided that all of Africa's broadcast companies convert to digital terrestrial television. But in some countries like South Africa, there has been delays for many reasons. The 2006 ITU conference concluded that all countries should migrate from analog to DTT by June 2015, starting with the Region 1 countries. South Africa, as part of Region 1, developed a migration policy and initiated a migration process from analog to DTT to meet the deadline. However, the country missed the deadline due to a number of challenges.
A number of things held us back. Chief among them is that some of the manufacturers and set-top box installers took the agency, which is Universal Service and Access Agency of South Africa, to court. And there were protracted legal battles over a number of years around installation and manufacturing of set-top boxes and the standards.
Huge battles between the different broadcasters with in fact, DSTV, MultiChoice saying no, it shouldn't be encrypted, and in fact, ETV saying that it should be. ETV basically saying that they needed encryption in order for the free-to-air channels to be able to do a whole lot of kind of sophisticated things.
The migration date has been moved numerous times, but the Department of Communication says the country will complete the switch off by December 2021.
There's a lot of work that we're doing in the background. A PMO has been set up by the minister. This PMO comprises of the department, comprises of USASA, comprises of Centec, comprises of broadcasters, ICASA, other mobile operators as well. So you have that. So you have a dedicated number of people that want the digital migration to succeed. So we are pushing for it.
Regulator body ICASA says it has been keeping tabs on the process and they are ready.
ICASA has always been ready for migrating from analog to digital broadcasting. We published the regulations in 2012, December 2012. Those regulations were meant to pave a way for digital migration. And obviously when ICASA develops regulations, we have to consider the government policy or the digital migration policies. So we have considered those, and we then publish those regulations.
But some in the industry say South Africa would likely miss its deadline again.
I'm very worried about us meeting this deadline because, of course, we've talked about deadlines again and again and again. And it seems to me that government hasn't put anything new in place to make sure that that deadline is in fact met.
The SABC says when DTT was planned 15 years ago, it was the best technology, but it is outdated. The broadcaster says its current turnaround plan envisages a far greater deployment via satellite.
When DTT was envisaged 15 years ago, it made sense. However, it hasn't been rolled out completely, and today where we find ourselves in, it's a sunset technology. The rest of the world's moving away from DTT. Our proposal is rather start rolling out DTH right now, which is then aligned with the government strategy in terms of having its own satellite. If you don't, then you're negatively going to be impacting people that have a DTT solution, which is not the way we should be going.
Some broadcasters in the country have already converted to satellite, which they say has been beneficial.
The satellite signal covers 100% of the total population. So really, at the beginning, DTT was a very viable technology. But as time has evolved, more and more South African households are making use of getting digital television with the different satellite platforms that are out there.
Shifting to a digital format will offer a number of advantages.
We are moving from having access to 4 channels currently from a terrestrial environment, from the SABC 1, 2, and 3, and of course E, to being able to have access to a multi-channel environment, and of course having access to a multi-channel environment also to audio channels, which is your radio as well.
While the promise of DTT is compelling, media analysts say the reality of migrating can be daunting, costly, and challenging to implement.
The big problem, of course, is just around spectrum, because what we're needing to do is to actually switch off that analog signal to free up spectrum, and we need spectrum in order for broadband.
Some nations in Africa have already completed the transition, significantly improving the viewer's experience.
SeedStars often travels all over the world to find the best tech startups. And this year they couldn't do that because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But they've chosen some of the startups around the African continent. Let's meet their South African startup.
Even through these difficult times the world is facing due to the COVID-19 pandemic, in true The Show Must Go On style, the SeedStars annual startup competition carried on. They have announced their South African winner, a women co-founded startup, Zindi.
Zindi's a data science marketplace for the African market. We host data science competitions for companies so that they can access the top data science talent and solutions for their organizations. Today we host over 20,000 data scientists from across about 140 countries around the world, 45 of which are countries on the African continent.
Having started in 2013, SeedStars is in the business of supporting entrepreneurs globally.
SeedStars World Competition is the core activity of SeedStars. We are running the competition annually starting from 2013, but this year, as you know, we had to reimagine it into the online version, because of all the conditions we have currently in the world. But it didn't, let's say, stop us. We went bigger and we reached more ecosystems. Like this year, we went to 94 countries virtually. We had somewhere online pitching competitions, like through different online tools, but also we introduced a new selection process. So startups had to go through online SeedStars Academy this year and mentors meetings, some investment team interviews as well. So there were way more steps in the selection process because of this, let's say, online setup. But again, it's just a different format, but we reached the results. We chose 94 local winners recently, like in the mid-November. And so just a different format, but the core activity and the main mission to impact people's lives in emerging markets stayed.
This year's SeedStars World Competition announced 25 winners in the African region that will be representing their respective countries on the world stage.
While many decided to bring back the phones that fold this year, LG decided to introduce one that pulls out to 80. I've been playing around with the new LG Wink. These days, it's difficult to set some phones apart from others. LG is often creative with this. They once had one that curves with the shape of your face. The cool factor with their new one is that it opens to a shape of a T. It is novel. When I first held the new LG Wing, I hated that it is chunky and heavy. You do feel that you are holding two devices in one. But with the work that we do as TV journalists, it's nice to have a screen that splits and can take two photos or videos at the same time. One at the front and the other at the back. They call this dual screen. I chatted to colleague Mlondi Hadebe using the phone's dual screen video feature. Mlondi, you say there's a feature you really love on this particular device. Which one is it? Can you use it in your work?
The dual feature of this phone we can use during the interviews when you are maybe, for instance, you are doing a live crossing. That will give you the opportunity to show the studio that what is happening, especially in terms of cutaways while you are crossing, so that they can see where you are, what are you doing there.
This is a great feature for gamers too, as the controls can be on one screen with the game on another at the top. The camera is not the best out there. In the main, there is a 64 megapixel machine. The second is a 13 megapixel ultra-wide, with the third being 12 megapixel. I like it, and its experimental nature is cool to use and not bothersome. I'm not quite sure if it's worth the 20,000 Rand price tag, as there are better phones in that price range. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram News Network at sabc.co.za on email. After the break, we find out about the real reason that brought me to Mpumalanga in Hammersdale. They're getting new Wi-Fi. It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Hammersdale in Mpumalanga is getting new Wi-Fi, but it's not just Wi-Fi alone. They're also getting new street lights. It's a project by social entrepreneur Kanyiso Madlala. As we go on a walkabout in the township of Mpumalanga in Hammersdale in KwaZulu-Natal, we meet a local who tells us about his struggles to connect to the internet.
It's very expensive right now because I buy data, so data is very expensive.
We then find drilling at the local school. Light Shines is coming up against a rock as they put up another lamppost that will have Wi-Fi access for the community. The principal here says they have basic internet for admin work for now, but she tells me it seldom functions properly.
Sometimes there's electricity outage in the townships. If there is no electricity, it doesn't work. So as this one is using the solar, so it means as the community around the school as well as the school itself, we won't be out of internet.
The principal says there's a massive need for what Light Shines is doing.
Outside the fence of the school, whereby a young girl who was still at high school was raped and killed by 6 boys due to the fact that there are no lights here in the passage outside the fence of the school.
The plan is for private land next to the school to be a community center that provides digital skills for locals. Kanyiso Madlala is working on a big project, which is to light up some of the townships in South Africa. The lights that he's installing, though, are not just street lights. They also have Wi-Fi, so they provide Wi-Fi for some of the communities. He started in Mpumalanga in Hammersdale, and he's also going to be doing the same thing in Merenridge in Durban. Hello, and thank you very much for being a part of our network in Kanye. So maybe if you can start by telling us, what is it that you are doing as part of your project?
My project is basically designed to benefit people living in
at-risk communities. These are rural areas, these are townships. The name of my company is Energy Efficiency, and this project is called Light Shines Back to Program. Basically, I started the project when I realized in 2014 that there were over 48 people that were murdered in a township just because there's lack of light. And in that process, when I did the research, I discovered that the very same people don't have access to the internet. So I created the project around that to basically create a system where we would be able to light up these at-risk communities, these townships, these rural communities, and at the same time be able to give them access to information. So in a nutshell, bringing physical light and metaphoric light at the same time.
And why is access to information so important, do you believe?
I think it's important because, you know, half of the population of our people in South Africa don't have access to the internet, and that's 500 million people in the rest of Africa. So I believe that by allowing people and enabling them to be able to access information and also be able to be safe and in their own communities, I believe that it could add quite significantly to their own local communities, creating innovation and creating, you know, a lot of opportunities for young people specifically as well.
This didn't just start now, did it? Tell us about the building blocks that led to where we are now.
So I started off, had a real full-time job, that left, and then started working on the prototype, working on this project. I've been able to get some companies that were able to help me to basically be where I am today. I'm currently launching in 2 sites. I'm launching here in Hammersdale, in Mpumalanga, and at the same time I'm also launching the products in Marion Ridge at 3 schools, which has about 3,000 kids. A lot of these communities also, like, they're just hopeless, and so what this project is doing is bringing hope to these people. It's basically helping them to discover their own sense of innovation and also making their public spaces safer, because for instance here, a young girl was raped by 6 men because there's actually no lights. In the other school, another girl was raped and another was murdered right there at the school. And now kids want to study late, but they can't now because they've got lights. Now it's not just the community that has access to energy efficient lighting and access to information, but also it's the public itself in its totality. In another park where we've also illuminated, the community was telling me that a 5-year-old boy was killed. So this is now changing the whole entire the community.
A lot of tech entrepreneurs often say that they struggle with getting funding. What would your advice be to tech entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so my advice is firstly, educate yourself, invest in educating yourself, because obviously funders and VCs, they have their own mandates, right? So the best solution and the best situation I would say to entrepreneurs and young innovators is to first invest in information, get your customers to be your first funders. Once you've really launched and you're really doing well and you're getting a good traction, we talk about minimal viable traction and minimal viable product. Get people to love your products, getting traction, and then you can launch into going maybe Series A and B, C, beyond.
You want this to be more than just a Wi-Fi hotspot that is a light. Tell us about the bigger plan.
The bigger plan is to bring physical light and metaphoric light to Africa. So my vision is, if you see a satellite image of Africa at night, it's dark. My vision is to have light in Africa, and at the same time have these communities where there's light and not only illumination but also access to information, which I believe will create a lot of businesses for the local people. They're creating their own inventions, creating their own innovations, creating their own products, and by and large impacting and transforming their own local economies. So people here are very far from the main city, which is Durban. They're about 45 minutes away or 50 minutes away. So I believe that there are a lot of people here that have gifts and talents. Those gifts and talents can be used for the betterment of their own families and for their community at large. So creating innovation centers and creating innovative products within their own communities, them not having to leave their communities, but actually benefiting and creating their own technologies in their own communities. That's my vision.
All right, Nkanyiso Madlala, thank you very much for being a part of our network this evening. Beautiful work that this gentleman is doing here. With that, let's take a short break. It is the SABC network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
Would you get bionic implants to improve your eyesight, a chip turbocharge your brain, or guard against cancer? According to a survey commissioned by cybersecurity firm Kaspersky, nearly 2/3 of people in leading Western European countries would consider human augmentation, the fusing of artificial intelligence into the human body to make it better, stronger, or healthier.
Wouldn't it be interesting if you could, for example, see in the dark how much of being human will there be in future, and how much of technology human hybrids will there be in future?
Companies like Elon Musk's Neuralink, which has already tested on pigs, aims to implant chips into human brains to help cure neurological conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia, and spinal cord injuries. And now in Israel. The gentle buzz of tiny propellers has replaced dog barks and bullwhips on this Israeli ranch, where drones are being used to both herd and observe cattle. The remote-controlled quadcopters hover near the cows, which perceiving them as potential predators.
We call it click and herd, or herding in 3 clicks. Basically, you open the application, choose the pasture you want to work and the destination you want to get there, and our drone goes up in the air and does all the rest of the work for you.
A group of U.S. states led by New York is investigating Facebook Inc. for possible antivirus violations and plan to file a lawsuit against the social media giant, 4 sources familiar with the matter said last Wednesday. The complaint would be the second major lawsuit filed against big tech company this year. The Justice Department sued Alphabet Inc.'s Google in October. It is also said that more than 40 states plan to sign on to the lawsuit.
Twitter has said that they will be returning with their blue tick verification process. Let me just boast and say that I did get that blue tick next to my name before Twitter went away with the process. Our Twitter poll this week is asking you what you think of the return of this process. In first place are 47% of you who say yes. In last place is 10%. Those say no. And 43% of those that responded to our poll say it does not matter to them. All right, and that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's newsnetwork at sabc.co.za. An email from me, Siphumelele Zondi, and the rest of the team right here in Mpumalanga in Hammersdale. Thank you very much for being a part of our network. Remember to always wear your mask if you are in crowds. Otherwise, keep that social distancing. Have a good one. It's good night.